and love myself, and you give power and influence to the wrong people, look how it turns out. You have to hype yourself up when nobody else on the external is hyping you up. You have Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Ascension with V. I'm your host, Stashia Jeanette, aka V, and today I wanted to talk about something real quick that is kind of a big issue that many people deal with and encounter in their life, and that is the mommy and daddy wound. And I wanted to talk about kind of how that can display in a couple of different ways in our lives, especially when it comes to who we choose to take as our partners in life, as our significant others, as our husbands, as our wives, as our boyfriends, as our girlfriends, things of this nature, and how we interact with people of the opposite sex because of our relationship with our mothers or fathers. And so I don't think it's going to be a super long episode, but we'll see what transpires and what takes place. But there has been a number of times where I've often reflected and been like, what made me decide to choose to date a guy like that? What was it in me that led me to feel like this was an acceptable partner for me? What is it that was wounded or hurt within me that made me feel that I had no other options but to date these kinds of people? And it sucked. It sucked to have to sit there and kind of go through that grueling process of unpacking the things that I had gone through in my life, the things that had happened to me in my childhood, the things that I felt, whether good or bad, in relationship to my mother or in relationship to my father, and everything in between. And it's a really, really uncomfortable process that you have to go through if you really want to get to the nitty gritty of those hard hitting questions. And the hard hitting questions have to be asked in order to get to this point. And I think the first thing that I realized was, number one, that I did not have essentially any self-confidence. And, I think this is doubly prominent for people who were late bloomers and they went through the ugly duckling stage of their life throughout their teen years or their high school years, like adolescent years, right? And then, later in their lives, in their late 20s or in their 30s even, they became, the belle of the ball, or, the shining king, or whatever the case may be here, right? This has a huge effect on a lot of people because they're stuck in the confidence that they had when they were in that ugly duckling phase, when they were in that awkward phase of their life, when they were getting bullied for how they looked, or when they were getting bullied for how they dressed or how they talked, or maybe bullied for having braces or bullied for having glasses, or whatever the case may be, right? It is always something that stems from like young years, childhood years. Which is why I always stress the importance of doing the thing of inner child wound healing and sitting with yourself to figure out, where is it within myself that I still have some unacknowledged or unresolved inner child trauma or aggressions or pains or anything that I just have not acknowledged from childhood. And it doesn't even just have to be with parents, but like just experiences period from your childhood that were painful, brought you grief, that traumatized you in any kind of way. Is crucial to sit down and unpack those things and go through it and feel the feelings of those things and ask those questions. Why did that happen? How did that make me feel? Why did I not express those feelings? Why did I feel like I couldn't express those feelings? Things of this nature, and try to get down to the microscopic detail of what it is, because from that you could then say, okay, so at this point me being bullied or me having this traumatic experience or people, calling me ugly or people doing this led me to no longer have any kind of self-confidence or self-esteem, or my self-worth was low because nobody wanted to be my friend, or because, nobody wanted to hang out with me. I didn't have any friends, or because, people didn't think that I was attractive. Whatever this is, you then can move from that phase and say, that is what contributed to me having like essentially a exponentially low bar set for anybody to be my companion, for anybody to be my partner, for anybody to be my significant other, for anybody to be my husband, for anybody to be my wife. Like, if you don't get a hold on that issue number one right there, your self-confidence and your self-worth and how you view yourself and how worthy you feel like you are, from that point right there, you have already kind of just like volunteered yourself to just grovel with whatever it is that you can get. And I'm sorry, like, to say it that way, but that's the truth. I had to say that to myself. Like, so I'm not telling you guys anything that I hadn't that I haven't told myself, or that I didn't put myself through, because at the end of the day, that's what it was. It was me being like, "Hey, these are the options that I have," and that was it, because I didn't think I was worthy of better. I didn't think that I could do better. I didn't think that better wanted me. And I also didn't see myself the way that other people were currently seeing me on the external, right? So like I was internally still stuck in that ugly duckling phase. Because again, like if that's a long period of your life, especially if you're not just dealing with that, like if you have, the next phase of this, the mommy and daddy, or the mommy or daddy or both wounding here on top of this, like you had a rough childhood on top of this, like the trauma that is also added to that, your perception of yourself, your self-worth is incredibly warped, and it's hard to break out of that, but it's not impossible. But again, like I said, the first step of that is you asking the hard-hitting questions of how you got there, and was it in fact of how people treated you as a child in your young years, through high school, through middle school, through whatever the case may be. And if so, like, it's time for you to kind of reclaim those parts of you and be like, look, this is what we went through then, but like we're not there now. And reflect on, look at us now, like we're good, we are beautiful, we are worthy, we are accepted, we are worthy of having an equally yoked partner, we are worthy of having peace, having a good relationship with the opposite sex, having a good relationship with women and men, and all the things. Like, it's uncomfortable, but you have to take the first step. You have to take the first step of reclaiming those parts of you that were hurt, wounded, and essentially frozen in time, right? And until you go back and do that realization, that part of you is stuck there, in that phase of self, and you're not able to see yourself from the version of you are, the version that you are presently. And that's how a lot of people, just from that one level right there, that one first stage right there, that's how a lot of people lock into unequally yoked partnerships with people. And they lock in with, baby mamas, baby daddies that are not an equally yoked match for them, and they're stuck with them now for life, because they never got to the point of reclaiming the part of them that is worthy, that they do love, that they are proud of, that they are comfortable with, that they are confident in their skin with, you, right? They didn't get to that point. They're still frozen in time from how they were when they were, in the aforementioned phase. That is so crucial. And that's one of the first, like I said, I see it so often, and I went through it myself, but I just didn't stay there, right? Like, that's the part that a lot of people lock in. They lock into that version, and they lock into that timeline of existence where that's the reality that they live in, that they're existing in, when that didn't need to be so. And of course, at any point in time, people can make the free will decision to be like, let me get out of this. Let me make some changes so that, I can continue to grow, so that I can heal, that so I can, move on beyond this phase of existence, right? But that's the one. That's the most common level that I see, and it is so sad and it's so heartbreaking because a lot of people they don't realize that that's what it is. But the next one is this. It's that the mother and daughter, I mean the mother and father wound. And traditionally that I've seen it, like I've experienced it, like the daddy wound. If you wanted your dad's like love and affection so much, but they wanted nothing to do with you, or they weren't in your life, or they disowned you, or anything of this nature. Like if you had any kind of not good relationship with your father, that longing to have that kind of relationship with your father, even if your father was like the worst human being in existence, there is still an inherent trait for the daughters to find a man that replicates the way that the father was, right? Like this is like a real scientifically proven thing, that frequently you try to like fill the void or fill your father's shoes with somebody that is essentially just like them. And that can be a great or a terrible thing, again, depending upon the relationship that you had with that father, right? So if your father was like in your life and treated you terribly, was abusive, was, into the drugs and the addictions and things of this nature, and was like a very toxic, negative person in your life, even though that still was a thing, even though that's how it was, and even though you may consciously still be aware of that, you will still be prone to wanting to find, date, and be with somebody that has those exact same traits. And I hate that more than anything, as I see it so frequently, is like women being with these super terrible guys, and they like it because they think that that's their version of love. That's the only perception of love that they had as they were growing up. Like that's what they equated to love from their father from. So even if he raised his fist to her and would hit her, or if he raises his fist to his wife or the mother, that as a child is what's equated sometimes with that's affection, that's attention. At least they're showing me some kind of attention. And I've even worked with some people who they've got it bad with like the battered wife syndrome. Of they've said it to me personally, like I know I'm like this because that's my dad would only show me attention when he was angry, and she wanted his attention so bad that she would act up, like just for him to get mad and hit her or discipline her, or whatever the case may be, just because she was getting attention. And outside of that time, she would be ignored. And that's so tragic, but like that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about here. So then she then married somebody who was abusive, and she knew, you know, like this is all I know. And like just because that's all you know doesn't mean that that's all you have to accept. Yes, that can be all you know, but you can literally change. You can choose to want more beyond that. You can choose to be open to learning what different forms of love, healthy forms of love look like, but it's not an easy process. A lot of times people who have like battered wife or battered husband syndrome, they often go back to that their abuser, or they often get back with another person who's like kind of the same, has the same similar traits. And again, if you don't acknowledge where it came from and why you're that way, it's almost impossible to heal the wound. You kind of just keep poking at it, and you don't ever close it. So I feel like it's super, super important to say, hey, if you find yourself repeatedly attracting or dating the same kind of people, like women, this one is pointed at you. If you keep getting with the same kind of guy and being like, why these guys treating me like this? Why these guys not shit? Why these guys doing this, that, and the third? Why I only get terrible dudes? Why, how come, like, it's you. It's you. This is who you're calling in. That's who you're attracting because you have not grown out of that phase of yourself that thinks that you are worthy for more, that you're deserving of more, and you've not done the work to heal beyond that. That's speaking from personal experience. The moment that I realized, I was like, like I'm recycling guys here. Like, different person, but same energy, same spirit, same demon, same whatever the case may be here. It was a different body, but it was like the same essence, doing the same exact thing. And it's because I was the same. I still had the unhealed parts of me, the unacknowledged parts of me. Like, I was just zombieing through life, not acknowledging my part in the people that were coming in and out of my life, in the people that I was dating. You know, you attract the kind of wounds that I had. I was attracting somebody with like the same kind of resonating energy for that wound. Not to heal, but like that was just an equal wounded match. Right. So when the example of like broken people break people or broke people break people is kind of the same here. Like, broke people attract equally broken people. And it's really, really important to find where it is that you're stuck at. Male or female, it makes no difference. Find where you're stuck at. Where is your wounding at? And if you are a male, a lot of times, if you have the mother wound, I had a guy who his mom was a sex worker, and he was dating women who were just like his mom, and take that as you may, and he was a really good guy, like a really good guy, but like, God, the women that he chose, and it was just a repetitive cycle. And the reason why he was attracting these women is because that was his mom. He loved his mom regardless of, how she was. And she was not a great mom to him, because, she had men coming in and out of their house, and he was not the priority. And even as a kid, he was holding the fort down as a kid for his mom. And, nights would come and she would not be at home, and he was the one that was taking care of everything for the household. But regardless of how she treated him, how she talked to him, that was his mom at the end of the day. And unconditionally, as a child, as children do. But the things that I'm assuming that he had seen in the way that she treated him left him so broken and fragmented to where, like, I mean, he's a very he's a very attractive guy, like very attractive, and good head on his shoulders, but she broke him. And so the women that he was getting with, he had a good job and things, but they were just like bringing him down, for lack of better words here. They were bringing him down, tanking him. And so it's you're choosing the same kind of women that your mom was, and he was like kind of pissed off at first when I said it, but like he stopped for a second, and and had a moment of like recollection, and was like, oh shit, like this is the truth. And that's when it hit him. I didn't realize up until this moment. Like, no, you didn't, because you were just going through it. Plus, you didn't want to feel it. You didn't want to feel the things that you had to go through, that she put you through, and as a child. And those repressed emotions were like coming out in the form of your relationship with these women, right? The things that you went through as a childhood was playing out in his relationships with these women. And the only way to get off the crazy train, and again, is to make the realization of, this is what's happening because of my wounding, because of my mother wound, because of my father wound, because of the trauma that I went through. as a child. And so, again, like I said, the important process here is to acknowledge the wounds and to sit with them and to understand them. Ask the hard hitting questions, because you can't get out of the cycle without understanding yourself, understanding those feelings, and then going back and reclaiming those parts of yourself that were affected by the aforementioned things. And it is hard, it's uncomfortable, but it's so worth it so that you can free yourself and your inner child from the clutches that they had on you. And not only that, while you're doing that, please forgive your mother and father, because everybody gets handed down ancestral baggage and we call it quote unquote ancestral curses or things of this nature, but you get handed kind of like a jelly bean bag full of whatever kind of jelly beans, like those prank jelly beans, and they all taste like shit. This is this. Everybody gets a bag of those prank jelly beans, when they become a mother or a father, and their bag of jelly beans is whatever their parents and their parents' parents and their parents' parents' parents and so on and so forth handed them. And so it's up to you though to decide to not take those jelly beans on as your own. A lot of people don't realize that they have the option to be like, nah, this doesn't belong to me. And no, that's not going to be how I choose to raise my children, or that's not how I choose to live my life. A lot of times people don't realize that they can make a different choice regardless of what bag of jelly beans they were handed. You don't have to eat the jelly beans. You can throw them away, but I don't think anybody ever tells them that. And I think they just kind of keep handing the bag down like you can make a change, but a lot of times our parents they didn't know, and they can only do as much as they are aware of. They can only love you as far as they love themselves, and a lot of our parents had the same similar kind of trauma with their parents, and it's us who have to be the ones who break that lineage of just handed down shitty bag of jelly bean trauma. Yeah, you can choose to be that line breaker. You can choose to be the one that decides to heal, that decides to take a different path, that decides to raise their children with love and compassion and show them attention and affection and discipline and healthy ways, and choose to be the ones that bring a lot of good positive intentions and love into this new generation of children that are coming, because they're special. They're special children that are here to do really great things on this planet for us. And those who have chosen to be the generational curse breakers of their lineage, who chose to do the healing, you are the ones who are being bestowed those children if you have not already had them. And that is your reward for doing the work. And with that being said, I'm going to wrap this episode up here, but don't forget that you can apply to work one-on-one with me. And all the links and things will be in the description box below. And don't forget to check out the new Earth Guidebook to Healing and Ascension on Amazon, and the new website at ascensionoraclev.com. Till next time, I'll see y'all. Peace, squad.